This happened to me a few years back when I was in my early 20s. At the time, I worked in a department store at the makeup counter. The job relies heavily on good customer service and building relationships because you want people to keep coming back and spending money on your products. We're given personalized business cards so that we can build our own client base. Pretty important for a commission department. It's not uncommon to be familiar with people who frequently shop in the store. As workers, our training is focused on being friendly and accommodating. One day while I was working, I had to move a makeup counter that wasn't my own to cover someone else's lunch break. It was really slow and I was just leaning on the counter, people watching. I could tell most shoppers were just browsing, so I kept it to myself. One of the people I noticed was a very tall, broad man. He walked very slowly, almost hunched over. His face was fixed very aggressively, like he was angry, but focused. He circled around the corner a few times, but I could feel his gaze on me as he considered the products. After a few rotations around the department, I decided to greet him in case he needed some help. It wasn't until he came directly over to me that I realized how big he actually was. I'm 4'10", 140-pound female, so I feel pretty small regardless, but even with his slouched posture, he was over 6 feet tall and well over twice my weight. I'll never forget his teeth. They were completely black in the front. Your eyes couldn't help go right to them. Despite his menacing appearance, he was soft-spoken. Truthfully, I couldn't tell he wasn't all there, and by the way he talked. He told me no when I asked him if he needed help, but requested my number. So direct. We had never spoken before. I declined and said that I was in a relationship and it would be inappropriate. He then asked if I could have a business card for the counter just in case he wanted to get products. Since I wasn't on my normal counter and I really wanted him to go away, I handed him my coworker's business card and told him to call if he had any questions. It worked and he walked away well after that, filling me with relief. Only a couple minutes later, the phone on my counter rings. I answer it with my peppy customer service voice saying, "Thank you for calling, makeup brand name. How can I help you?" And immediately I know it's the same guy when he starts talking. He asked me again for my personal number and I explained to him once again that I cannot do that. He just wants to talk, he explains. Since he wasn't getting the hint, I say, "I should have told you that I'm married. You can't have my number." Politely, he apologizes and hangs up. I thought that would be the end of him, but for the next few weeks or so, I spent so much of my time at work anxious that he would show up. I would see him every week and he would lurk around the corner looking at me. Anytime I would see him, I'd immediately drop what I was doing, run, hide, or go to the nearest customer and offer a bit of assistance to make it look like I was busy so he wouldn't talk to me. I successfully dodged him every time. It came to the point where I stopped seeing him. I was thrilled. I had almost completely forgotten about him until one day I decided to go to Walmart by myself to pick up a few things on my day off. I generally like to shop alone, and I can take all the time I need. I was leisuring around. I grabbed a basket and made my way over the cosmetic/hair/wellness section, since that's where most of the things I needed were. Typical girl stuff. I only managed to grab a few things before I locked eyes with him as I walked to the supplement aisle. I had recently changed my hair color and wasn't wearing my work uniform, so I didn't think he'd realize who I was. I was ready to just go about my shop until I noticed that he had dropped the items that he had in his hand and started heading my way. I panicked and stiffened my pace immediately. I thought to myself, he's not going to follow you through the store, right? But as I turned to look around, I could only see his humongous body plowing through people, with that terrifying look on his face, only meaner, his black teeth growing closer with the snarl. Since the direction I was walking was opposite of the exit, and there were no way in hell I was going to turn around, I decided that my best course of action would be follow the perimeter of the store and cut down the center section, which would bring me closer to one of the registers. I speed walked the entire time in hopes of losing him amongst all the people, but never once turning around again. By the time I made it to the register area, I could actually feel him behind me. Still not wanting to turn around to look, I glanced at the reflection of the soda machines that are in between the register aisles to see how close he was. To my horror, there was only 1/2 to 2 feet between us. I was afraid to just drop my stuff and run out the door in case he followed me to my car. I parked in the far back of the parking lot, and I did not want to risk that. I also did not want to get in the line at the register since the lines were long and I would just be standing out in the open, alone. Instead, I walked to the cluster of people crowded in the self-checkout line. I noticed another large but older gentleman with his carriage in the middle and ran straight for him. The people were so close, and they were clustered together, so the man who was following me couldn't cut through. I ran over to the man in line and grabbed onto his cart. I said, "I'm so sorry, I'm not cutting you, but there's a man that's been following me through half of the store and I need to stand with you." He was so sweet and let me be with him while we waited in line, and even then didn't let me go ahead of him so I could leave quicker. As I was cashing out, I could see in my peripheral vision my stalker staring at me and pacing around. And he couldn't come near me since the self-checkout is somewhat sectioned off. By the time I had finished and grabbed my receipt, I couldn't see him anymore. I looked around, but he was nowhere, and I thought about asking the older man to walk with me to my car. But I decided to call my boyfriend and make a run for it. Staying on the phone, I explained to him what was going on as I sprinted to my car in tears, frantically looking around in case he tried to follow me outside. I made it to my car safely and rushed home, breaking down to my parents about what just happened. I could feel it in my bones that man wanted to do something to me, and thankfully I didn't find out what it was. His aggressive aura was palpable. To this day, I can still remember the adrenaline, nervousness, and the sheer terror I felt when he followed me. I had never been so vulnerable and helpless, even with all those good people around. I quit that job roughly 2 years later. I had only seen him one other time there since the incident, but I didn't still live in constant fear that we cross paths again. I'm afraid to shop alone, something that I wouldn't give a second thought 2 years before. So to my stalker with black teeth, let's not meet again.